let's talk about another situation with knights. This is a common beginner opening, right, guys? Almost everybody has played this at least a little bit during their upcoming in chess. And I'm gonna scoot ahead to a middle game position. Well, not middle game, but like late opening. I think this position is a little hard for beginning players because they have a knight on d2 blocking the bishop. So they feel kind of weird. They're like, ooh, how do I deal with this bishop not being able to move? So they end up doing really weird stuff. The key here is actually that you need to improve your worst piece. You need to find some way of improving both your knight on d2 and your bishop on c1 in a harmonious way. So let's think for a minute. Where do you guys think this knight on d2 belongs? This is also kind of open-ended, but where should it really go? Where does it lust to go to? What's the best spot? 66, welcome. Better late than never, right? You actually missed all of my boring theoretical talk about how I look at the chess pieces and their activity. So maybe you actually just arrived at the perfect time, you know? It's party schedule. All right, so Pad Ragnarok is saying knight f1 to g3. I think this is completely correct. All right, 66 said c4 and e5. I think maybe you mean f5 or maybe e3. So we have a couple different pathways that are very interesting. We want to move the rook and then play like this. And we might also want to play like this. And actually both of them have a common destination, f5. This is a very nice square because it's exerting an influence on all these different pawns. It's also not interfering with any of the white pawns. And if they take it, it also just leads to the activation of one of the white pawns. So this is a very sensible maneuver. In my opinion, all maneuvers are concrete. Some people will say something like maneuvering chess is in contrast with dynamic calculating chess. I think this is complete nonsense because maneuvers are not good for their own sake. Maneuvers are only good if they take you to a position with some concrete benefit. Having a knight on f5 is quite good. It increases your attacking prospects. 66 is saying Castro will be pleased. That's perfectly true. He put his knight on f5 in many games and just checkmated people, even at the price of a pawn. So I think this makes perfect sense. So in this line that I laid out, I start with rook e1. Now before I play knight f1, I added the move h3. The reason is, actually there's more than one reason. One reason is that we also might want to play knight h2 to g4, and we need some support. It's also good to interfere with the bishop and the knight arriving on g4, because the moment we play knight f1 is actually a somewhat vulnerable moment. Let me see, is there anything really critical here? I'm not sure if it actually is like a tactical issue. Like if we play knight g4, there's always going to be knight e3. It's not a big deal. But it's nice to kind of prevent them from doing anything active before we go ahead with our plan. And for black, they also want to use a similar maneuver. They play knight c6 to e7 to g6, and so we do the same thing. It's kind of flattery. You know, we're both just doing this maneuver, saying, hey, your plan's pretty good. I think I'll do it too. This is a made-up position, but I've been in a position just like this several times. Although I must say I'm not much of an Italian player. I often play other different things. But this is definitely the right way. I didn't just make it up completely. This position has been reached. If I just look at the Light Chess computer, a database, it looks like this has been played at least 200 times by decent players. And Pad Ragnarok is completely correct. This maneuver maybe happens even more often in the Spanish. And the reason that we see the same maneuver in different openings is because the pawn structure is the same. The static features of the position, the long-term fields, they inform the maneuvers of the other pieces. Whatever is more static that we can rely on, that's what tells us what to do for the long term.